Today we are going to be talking about big data, a topic that's close to my heart because we are seeing companies and clients really starting to engage around this topic and invest millions of dollars trying to come to grips with how do they deal with this opportunity and challenge around big data. Big data also goes way beyond traditional financial data and financial measures to include a number of different sources of data that get pulled together. Hence, this catch-all phrase that we call big data. Let's peel this back a little bit more to understand the types of data that we include in this concept. On a day-to-day basis, you're going online, you are logging into Facebook, you are using your mobile application, you are shopping, you are sending text messages to your friends. All of these activities is creating a trail of data that companies are collecting. So you've got weblogs, you've got social media messages, you've got tweets, you've got text messages, you've got phone calls. All of this data is being gathered by different organizations in different ways and is being centralized in many different parts of the world. This creates this concept of big data. Companies now have the challenge and also the opportunity to link, connect, and tap into all of these data sources to find new insights, new information about you as a consumer, for example, so that they can create better products for you, they can put a better offer to you at the right time, at the right place. Traditionally, what companies did was they collected information that was relevant just about their business, whether it was financial data or information about their customers, and they stored it carefully and in a very structured way. And then they ran reports and they analyzed this information and they produced reports and data that was useful to run their business. Today, as I was talking about your behavior, you are creating a trail of data around all of your activity. And most of what we do has been digitized in a way that our information can be captured. And this data is not necessarily structured. It could be some thoughts that you have written on a blog, not directly related to a company, but it has some information about who you are, how you think, what you care about. Companies can access this unstructured data and start to make sense of it using this concept of big data. As you can imagine, the amount of data that is being generated, not just by you, by your friends, by your family, by people that you have never met around the world, this data is increasing exponentially every second. In fact, I'm not sure if you might know this, but 90% of the information that is available today has been created only in the last 2 years. So you can imagine the pace at which new information is being added to our data sets and our databases. So companies are now challenged to use new tools, new methodologies, new approaches to deal with this vast array of information. And the tools, the techniques, the approaches that they're using, all of this again comes under this broad topic of big data. So when we think of big data, there are 3 V's that we need to remember. This helps us define what we mean when we talk about big data. The first V is volume. Essentially, this refers to the significant amount of data that is available and is being created every second. The second V is variety. As I mentioned, this data is coming at us from so many different sources. Structured data, unstructured data, data from within an organization, data from outside of the organization. All of the variety of data that's coming at us is part of this concept of big data. So the second V is variety. The third V is velocity. And velocity essentially means the speed or the rate of change in terms of the data. So every time you log on and log off, every time you send a message and log off or log on again, you are creating data trails. That information is changing rapidly by the second. So velocity essentially means that data is changing at a rapid pace And we need to ensure that we are able to capture this data and analyze it almost on a real-time basis. Now, besides the 3 V's, those 3 V's of volume, variety and velocity, which have been described by Gartner, there is a 4th V that people are starting to associate with big data. And this 4th V is veracity, which in the English language essentially means truthfulness. So essentially an important element of making sure that all of this data that's being generated and created can be verified to be accurate, to be truthful, because a lot of people are putting a lot of information out there. How do you ensure that that information is as accurate as possible before you take it into your organization? So for example, consumer reviews. Anybody can get online and write a review, a good review, a bad review, a negative review about an organization and its services. But do we know if those reviews are correct? Are they truly representative of consumer opinion? So you need to be very careful in sourcing those reviews, in verifying, in following up with individuals to make sure those reviews are accurate before you absorb them into your data set. So veracity is your 4th V that becomes a very important fact in big data. So why should we care about big data? A couple of key reasons. The first is that it can help organizations to drive innovation. If organizations are able to access all of this information rapidly and analyze it and come up with new ideas, new ways to service their customers, that will spur innovation and help them move ahead. The second reason is that big data will enable a company to create competitive advantage. Companies that have invested in creating the required resources, data sets, databases, software, hardware to enhance and access all of this big data will for sure be able to generate competitive advantage because they will be coming up with methodologies, approaches, solutions, products, services well ahead of their competition, and those products and services will be targeted at the right customers at the right time. So big data is a clear opportunity for organizations to create competitive advantage. The final reason that we should care about big data is that it enables companies to enhance and to improve productivity. Again, by being able to track, monitor and analyze numerous data sets and to pull it all together into a single view, companies can very quickly realize where they're adding value, where they're destroying value, and as a result, where should they focus more attention and where should they instead start slicing off parts of the business or stopping certain activities so that they stop destroying value. We've been talking theoretically about this concept of big data, but how does it come into play in the real world? What you're starting to see, for example, is with large retailers in advanced markets like the US or the UK, where they're starting to leverage multiple data sets. They've always had access to transaction data. What you buy, how much you bought, the basket of goods that you bought. So they have that information. They're starting to couple that with a lot of information from their loyalty program. From their loyalty cards, which you have signed up for, they're going to get a lot more information about who you are, about your family, about where you're from, about how long of a distance you drive to get to their store. So all of that data is being captured because you're a member of a loyalty program. In addition, they are buying data about the neighborhood that you live in, the incomes, the number of houses, the large household sizes. All of that information is coming at them from additional data sets. So they are building a very rich understanding of who you are, why you're buying from them, and when you visit their store. Now, on top of that, they have installed devices inside the store. So they've got cameras that monitor you as you walk in the store. They've got eye beacons that have been placed throughout the store so that if you walk by those beacons and if your mobile phone GIS system is on, it will tell the store who you are and where you were inside the store at what particular time. They're also using satellite imagery to track the vehicles that drive into their parking lots at what time, how many vehicles were there, and soon over time they might be able to actually tell the type of vehicle that came into the store and parked in the parking lot. All of this data they are taking and they are building the most comprehensive picture about you as a consumer. So big data is giving companies significant advantage, while at the same time it might make you feel a little nervous that all of this information about you has been gathered and has been analyzed with the sole purpose of trying to put in front of you the perfect good or service that you want to buy. Now, as you can see, big data has numerous benefits for organizations, but there are again some drawbacks that we need to be aware of. The first is that not all data is readily accessible and convertible to be useful. A lot of information still resides in old systems or in manual paperwork that becomes very difficult to access. So companies need to figure out when do they start collecting the right information, and the information that's not accessible, they need to decide very quickly, let's move that information out and let's try and move forward. The second, which is a big challenge for most organizations, is the lack of skilled people. There aren't that many people around today who are extremely good at manipulating these large data sets. So companies are on the lookout for these new roles, for example, called data scientists. Now, for you as a CIMA member and graduate, this might be a wonderful opportunity to think of a career. If you like the numbers, if you like getting into data, this may be a wonderful opportunity for you to start thinking about a career in an area that's growing rapidly, where companies are looking for the right talent. Another serious concern, of course, is the threat from hackers and, of course, attacks from viruses. Because the more data you collect, in many ways, the more vulnerable you become as an organization. Because if a hacker can attack one piece of your data set, they may start getting access to all of the information that's available through the organization. And we've seen many large data breaches happening literally within the last few months, and that's creating significant concern around this concept of big data and whether companies in fact should be aggregating all this information in one place. And finally, there's going to always be some issues around legal and privacy concerns. Should information like this from so many different sources be allowed to be put together? And should companies be able to paint a complete picture about their consumers? So that's going to be a battle that's going to be fought over the next few years, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So, with that, I'd like to bring to an end our discussion on big data. If you have more questions or queries or would like to engage more around this topic, please feel free to contact us and engage with us as we move ahead.